Sophie and Ash met in 2000 and 5 years later they were married.
The last 5 years have been the happiest of my life. Sophie, I absolutely love you to death and thank you for marrying me.
They started trying for a baby straight away and they were in for a big surprise.
What was that moment like when you saw on the screen not one, not two, but 3 little heartbeats?
I thought I was the luckiest person in the world and that this was the greatest miracle I'd ever seen. None of the difficulties or challenges of raising triplets came to me. I just thought that I'd been blessed.
And then talk us through what happened for you at 21 weeks.
I was at the supermarket and completely out of the blue, my waters broke. I went up to the hospital and I was told that I would go into labour probably within the next 24 hours. And at 21 weeks, it's too early for medical intervention. And so I was told, your babies are all going to die.
Sophie gave birth to tiny Henry 5 days later. She and Ash only got to spend 1 hour with their firstborn child.
Time really stood still for that hour. We kissed him and told him how precious he was to us and how precious he would always be to us and how much we loved him, and he died an hour later.
Through her grief, Sophie had to fight to save her 2 other triplets.
We had a long way to go until 24 weeks, which is when, back then, when babies were considered viable.
When did the boys come?
We made it to 24 weeks and my waters broke again.
Sophie had Evan and Jasper at 24 and a half weeks.
I couldn't believe that they were here, they were alive, and I absolutely 100% believed that they would make it. When Evan was about 7 days old, things started to go wrong. He had pneumonia, and then at 10 days old, he had a severe brain hemorrhage. And that's when the doctors advised us that we should remove his life support and let him go. We got through because we focused then, everything was on Jasper. Jasper was my little fighter. He suffered from repeated lung collapses, but each time he fought on, and I just believed that these would be long, distant memories one day, and when he was grown up, I could tell him about those moments. But when he was 58 days old, his lungs collapsed again, and we were called into the hospital, and nothing more could be done.
Amid her heartbreak over losing all 3 of her boys, Sophie kept thinking back to a conversation she'd had before she went into labour with Evan and Jasper.
The night that my waters broke, there was a critical shortage of newborn intensive care beds in the whole of Sydney. Every unit in Sydney was full, and I was told that our babies would be delivered in Sydney and then they would be airlifted either to Melbourne or Brisbane, and there was a possibility that one may be taken to Brisbane and one may be taken to Melbourne.
Gosh. What a scenario
That
to
was
face.
terrible. There's one of the best newborn intensive care units in the country right next door, and we were going to be moved elsewhere.
By the time Jasper and Evan were born, there was room for them in the hospital, but that discussion stuck in Sophie's mind.
It was only a few weeks after Jasper died, and Ash suggested, how about we run the Sydney Morning Herald half marathon and try and raise some money for the hospital. When we'd been in the hospital with the boys, we'd been amazed to discover that the hospital relies on donations for 70% of the equipment in the unit.
Right.
So we decided we would raise $20,000 and we would provide 1 humidity crib for the hospital in memory of Henry, Jasper and Evan.
And how many humidity cribs have you supplied now? How much have you raised now?
Well, we've now raised $2.5 million. And that's provided 29 pieces of life-saving equipment.
Running for Premature Babies is now the biggest team in the Sydney Morning Herald Half Marathon. The money it's raised is saving the lives of babies born even earlier than Evan and Jasper.
So how's all the preparation coming for the run this year?
The preparation's great. We've got a lot of people coming to our training sessions. I've got 300 runners registered already.
Carol and Kieran's daughter Amy was born at 26 weeks and her life was saved with the help of equipment donated by Sophie's team.
We were told 1 in 5 chance at that stage, but also even if she did survive, they were uncertain whether she would have any long-term complications.
Amy's now 7 and thriving.
Sophie's story is phenomenal, to go through everything she did with the triplets and then to come out and look for a way to make things better for other parents. It's just phenomenal.
Seeing the outcome of her fundraising helped get Sophie through her grief. She fell pregnant 15 months after Jasper's passing, and baby Owen was born full term, big and healthy.
Owen saved us. While, of course, we still grieved for Henry, Jasper and Evan, and we always will, Owen brought a new joy into our lives.
But during Owen's first 6 months, Ash had been suffering from awful headaches. He was diagnosed with the most aggressive form of brain cancer.
Ash had never been so fit and well in his life. He'd run on our team just a few months earlier, so it was a complete shock when he was diagnosed with brain cancer.
Knowing his treatment could cause infertility, he and Sophie took steps to have another baby before it was too late.
How was it for you when you realised you were pregnant with Harvey?
By that stage, Ash had completed his chemotherapy. He ran the half marathon that year again.
Oh my
He ran the half marathon with our team. And by the time Harvey was born, Ash was in remission. So Harvey's arrival was a double blessing.
That must have been a blissful period of time. How long did you get that for?
It was amazing. We had 5 years. I knew at the back of my mind that Ash's cancer was going to come back one day. We just didn't know when.
When did you find out that Ash's tumour had come back?
Owen had just started primary school, which was an amazing moment, etched in my mind.
How much time did Ash have then before he passed away?
So Ash ended up having probably 3 more surgeries over the next 2 years. Each time he would bounce back a little less well than before.
Ash died in 2016.
How much do they remember?
Oh, they remember a lot, thankfully, yes. They talk about Ash all the time.
Flowers are looking pretty good in the sunshine, aren't they?
Little Harvey often talks about Ash in the present tense still, which is really lovely.
Did you find when you lost Ash that the grief you'd experienced with your boys as well, it all came back?
As soon as he died, I felt there was like a physical knot in my stomach, which I found hard to rid myself of. I found it hard to eat, I found it hard to sleep. But again, the thing that saved me was the team and the running.
What are you hoping your boys learn from watching their mum, the powerhouse that you are, just conquer the world?
I really want to show them, through the way I have faced the death of the triplets and then of Ash, that there is always hope, even in tragedy.